right? So back in 2020, I was actually exploring this place, right? I was exploring how tech can help non-profits, and because at that time, right, no one was actually thinking of tech for non-profits, and it was fairly new. And the interesting story is also that I actually was looking for jobs, but I did not find any jobs in that sector, so I ended up starting my own company, right? We worked with a non-profit called Mitti Cafe, which is basically a non-profit which runs a chain of inclusive cafes in Bangalore, right? The founder, Alina, she calls me. She's a Forbes 30 under 30, the founder of the organization. She calls me. She's like, Akshay, kya jadoo tumne banaya? What magic did you do? Because we were struggling so much with our operations, so much, and suddenly all of our work has just streamlined. Everything is so easy. Whatever was taking few hours is now happening in few seconds. And suddenly all I have to do is just share this form link with people who can place their orders. And you know what? We are also coming out of our financial problems where more people are donating to our non-profit, and thereby I can pay the people with disabilities a decent salary so that they can sustain their living, right? For any customers, there are three things which are of paramount importance, right? Cost, quality, and timelines, right? And Zoho Creator addresses all those check boxes.
Hello, welcome to another episode of Creator Conversations with your host Syed. Today we have a special guest, an ex-Zoho employee who transitioned from the corporate world to making a direct impact on society. Akshay shares his journey from working at Zoho to pursuing his passion for teaching and then further founding EdZola, a Zoho Partner organization that helps nonprofits in managing their operations via Zoho Creator. Tune into this podcast to learn more about his journey and learn how Creator plays a vital role in it. Hi Akshay, welcome to Creator Conversations.
Hey Sayed, how are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm pretty excited and doing good.
How does it feel to be back to Zoho, back at Zoho?
I've been filled with nostalgia right from the beginning. The place has changed in the last 6 years that I've not been here. Lots of memories, and really excited to be here and recording this podcast.
Awesome. So I think I'll tell this to your viewers that this is going to be quite a long and interesting podcast over here. But yeah, to spill a bit of secret to them as well, you have been a Zoho employee before, like 2016 to 18, where you are part of analytics division, and then now you are a founder of EdZola, a Zoho Partner organization out there, which is helping nonprofits in implementing some amazing tech solutions out there. So can you take us through this transition and introduce yourself, Akshay?
Thank you, Sayed. I'll do that. 6 years back, I had a conversation with my friend outside the bucket building, right? And he used to ask me, Akshay, you're going to leave Zoho and join a government school as a teacher. Are you mad? Kind of a question. And I got reminded of that conversation today, right? I'm a software engineer by education. I started my career as Zoho. And I was part of the Managed Engine Analytics Plus. So we built the on-premise version of Analytics Plus, and this was from 2016 to 18. And after I was a software engineer there, I was volunteering for a nonprofit here in Agaram Foundation. So back at that time, Surya had come to our office, and I was volunteering at Agaram Foundation, and that's when I was very interested by the cause of education. And I did my Teach for India fellowship, where I worked in a government school as a teacher for a couple of years. And through the fellowship is when I discovered technology can be actually used to leverage greater social impact. So during 2020, I started EdZola with a vision of helping nonprofits with technology solutions and see how technology can create and amplify social impact. So that's what we do. And so far, we've worked with more than 40 plus nonprofits across India and globally. That's a short introduction about myself.
How's this partner journey been for you? Because you've been associated with Zoho Creator for a long, long time, right? How's it been for you? Has it been fruitful?
Is it just as a partner?
Yeah.
Okay, so as a partner, I think we started our journey sometime in 2020, if I'm not wrong. Right? It's been 4 years of us as a Zoho partner. and it's very it happened by coincidence actually. So back in 2020, we came across a nonprofit who were already on the Zoho stack and wanted to build a low code solution for a livelihood use case where they wanted to transform all their operations digitally. And that was when I came across Zoho Creator. And I've always known Zoho Creator, but I never thought Zoho Creator can fit the ball at that time as a solution. And I started working with them, and that's when we signed up as a partner as well. So far, I think in the last 4 years, we've implemented Zoho Creator solutions for a lot of nonprofits, and I think the journey has been great because the platform offers robust capabilities. For any customers, there are three things which are of paramount importance, right? Cost, quality, and timelines, right? And Zoho Creator addresses all those check boxes. You can deliver faster solutions. It's affordable, and also the quality of the product, quality of the platform is extremely good, right? So Zoho Creator that way has been a great platform for us in the work that we do, because in the work that we do, I think often we need to build solution and ship solutions faster, and we need to really spend a lot of time in the field understanding grassroots social issues. And once we figured out what solution can work for them, it really can create a lot of impact. So I think that way, I think the partner journey has been great, and the Zoho team has been very supportive as well. So yeah.
Perfect. Actually, you mentioned about non-profits in between, and EdZola is specialized in implementing solutions for nonprofits. Earlier, also, we had a conversation, and I was blown off with the amazing stories you shared. Right? Can you this is one thing where customization is very vital for nonprofits out there, because every nonprofit functions in a different way. How is Zoho Creator fitting that angle? Is it just like helping? Is it helping people to create tailored solution according to their process? Can you shed some light there?
Yeah, I think definitely, Syed. I think just a broader ecosystem, right? If I have to explain nonprofit as a bracket, nonprofit is just a legal structure that they are in, right? And many of the nonprofit have cause areas, right? Right from education, health, agriculture, they have different cause areas that they work with, and we work with nonprofits across these different causes, right? And to answer your question on how different solutions, or how different solutions that we cater to, let me take an example of school, right? Like education is something that we are all are familiar with, and do you know that out of 100 students who actually enter mainstream education in class 1 or 2, only 27 go to college, right? Our country has a gross enrollment ratio of around 27 percentage, which means out of 100 students entering the education, only 27 enter college, which means only your top 27 percentage actually enter college, which means you're leaving 73% behind, right? So I always wondered, like how can a country progress with
That's a
just
huge difference, right?
yeah, yeah. So that's when I was also shocked, and that was the reason I actually shifted from a software engineer to understand grassroots education in detail, right? So how, and my question always was, how as a country you can progress with only 23 or 27 percentage of your population going to college, right? And you're essentially leaving more than 70% behind. And if you see, right, the nonprofits, right, and there is a nonprofit that we work, actually a couple of them, who work in identifying these out of school children and bringing them back to mainstream education, right? So what these nonprofits do is go to communities, create camps on why education is important, and identify students who are not in school, right? And these are students who would have opted out of school for different reasons. Some could be migrant workers who travel states, so they don't have valid documents to enroll to school, or some could be lack of motivation or lack of support ecosystem to go back to school, or some just were forced into child labor, right? And for these nonprofits, right, how do you leverage technology to make their life better? And we've built a solution where you first identify these out of school children, right? So field workers use our creator app where they go to fields, capture these family and student information, and mark them as what is the reason why they are a dropout, right? And then they track that journey through different stages where you first identify and then help them in enrollment. And after you help in enrollment, right, then there is retention. You need to make sure that this child is actually staying in school for a longer time. So whenever they visit their homes later on, these community mobilizers, right, who use the Creator app, kind of see, like if the student is still in school and if there is any support required, right? So that end-to-end tracking is something which happens in Zoho Creator. And this is just one example, right? So this is in education, identifying out of school children. This is one small subsection, right? Similarly, right, take in contrast some other application in general, right, is let's say a social protection enablement, right? Government has thousands of schemes that are available for different beneficiaries, right, from agriculture, right, from people with disability. There are differences, right? And there are non-profit who work in providing welfare schemes for people, right? And we worked with an organization called Tapasya, where they work in a very big slum in Pune, and their vision is to help more than 3,000 families in that community to avail all the benefits that the government provides, right? And for them, right, they have field workers called Sakis who go to the field and they capture the beneficiary details in their mobile. It's a simple mobile form, and this system automatically maps against the government schemes which are already there, and based on the beneficiary data, the system will suggest what are the schemes that they're eligible with, right? And then what are the documents required to avail that scheme, and then these Sakis who are ground workers are able to use the application to actually guide them towards availing the required government benefit, right? And this way they are actually impacting more than 3,000 families availing any of the government schemes and benefits that are available. Thereby these like most of these beneficiaries are people with disabilities or old people or people who are not aware of these services, right? And this is how technology is used at grassroots social impact. So I can go on and on, but I'll just stop for now, Sayed. Yeah.
How is this simplifying the user's life? Like, I mean, is it just the volunteers who are using it, or is it like people who are like involved in the program? Let's say it is some training program organized by some non-profit. Is it being used by the participants also, or is it just like the volunteers? Like, how is the stakeholders being benefited from this?
A lot of them, right? I think a lot of members actually use even within this non-profit ecosystem, right? Typically, right, when we speak about non-profits, there are two stakeholders which are very prominent, right? One is donors who give money for non-profits, and then there are volunteers who give their time, right? But apart from that, right, there are a lot more stakeholders who are involved in monitoring of the program, right? So if you're a non-profit and if you're creating a social impact, which means you need to run operations, right? So there are team members of this non-profits, there are field workers, there are mobilizers, right? There are telecallers who would call up students and call up different have functions, and there are different kinds of these people in different roles, right? Who basically use the application, right? And typically we classify them as in creator parlance internal users and external users, right? So typically users who are working in the non-profit, right? So these are employees from their own organization, and consider an example where I'm saying a non-profit working in mobilizing youth, right? Thousands of youth across different centers in India, and they will have centers all over India, right? And 30 plus centers, and each center will have a center manager who is deployed in different centers, who will take care of the center operations. And these center managers would report to like a state head or a state lead who would take care of the state operations, and then a national team, right? So this is the hierarchy which typically flows. And similarly, for these center managers to work, right, there are external stakeholders. So the external stakeholders could be students who are participating in these programs, or trainers, teachers who are part of the center to deliver courses, who would come, mark attendance, mark assessments, do surveys, or telecallers who call up students and ask how the course is going, etc. And this is just an example of the kind of users who use the program, use the platform.
Awesome. How in terms of benefits, like how is it helping any non-profit out there? Like especially when it comes to Zoho Creator, it's a low-code platform. Many people aren't aware about the low-code term much, but how when they come across this platform, how do they take it up? Like how is the adaptability happening from the user end?
Yeah. Let me actually share a story for that, right? I think that will give you an idea of the sector that we are working with, right? So back in 2020, I was actually exploring this place, right? I was exploring how tech can help non-profits, and because at that time, right, no one was actually thinking of tech for non-profits, and it was fairly new, and the interesting story is also that I actually was looking for jobs, but I did not find any jobs in that sector. So I ended up starting my own company, right? That aside, I was actually volunteering and understanding how nonprofits function, right? And that's when we worked with a nonprofit called Mitti Cafe, which is basically a nonprofit which runs a chain of inclusive cafes in Bangalore, right? And at that time, during pandemic, they had shut down or closed down most of their cafes because the corporates were shut down, and they were actually using their cafes, which is like where people with disabilities are employed, and they were making meals and supplying to migrant workers called Karuna meals, and they were also making essentials and supplying to apartment complexes. Right. So this is the 2020 peak pandemic, and at that time I actually understood what their processes were. Right. I went to them. They were struggling with operation because all the founders were receiving phone calls and they were collecting orders. The kitchen was chaotic, etc. I just had a session to understand what are their processes and set up a simple form for them and a report, and also integrated with the payment gateway Razorpay, so that if anyone wants to pay, donate, etc., they can donate for the supplies as well. Right? It was a simple 1 or 2 day work, right? And after that, I gave a session to them to understand how to use the system, and then that was it, right? I given, and I thought, okay, let's see if they're using it, because I thought they will not use at that time, but they ended up using it, right? 2 days later, the founder, Alina, she calls me. She's a Forbes 30 under 30, the founder of the organization. She calls me and she's like, Akshay, kya jadoo tumne banaya? What magic did you do? Because we were struggling so much with our operations, so much, and suddenly all of our work has just streamlined. Everything is so easy. Whatever was taking few hours is now happening in few seconds, and suddenly all I have to do is just share this form link with people who can place their orders. And you know what, we are also coming out of our financial problems, where more people are donating to our non-profit, and thereby I can pay the people with disabilities a decent salary so that they can sustain their living, right? And she told me this, and she's like, and the word that stuck to me was, kya jadoo tumne banaya? And to answer your question, Sayed, right? How do people perceive it? For them, it's magic, right? For them, it's magic. Technology is magic for people who do not understand how it works, right? And I think how they perceive Zoho Creator, or how they perceive any technology solution is, right, is magic. It is a magic that is actually making their lives easy. It is actually making them smarter. It is actually making them take better data driven decisions. And it's actually helping them scale their impact from one place to another.
Awesome. I think I was going to ask you later this question, like if you had to give Zoho Creator a tagline or something, you would probably name it "Kya Jadoo Tumne Banaya." But yeah, that's a interesting take and interesting use case. You've delved into a couple of stories earlier, like use cases which where nonprofits are using Creator, right? One place where you felt Creator couldn't fit, but it did. Was there any use case or any story like that before, like which you came across for this non-profit organizer? But when you kept delving into the problem, you got to know, okay, this is like the perfect solution.
So there is one nonprofit, right, which already had a legacy system in BigQuery, right? And like initially, I thought, like usually when you have legacy systems, they wouldn't prefer a low-code solution like Creator, because most of the middleware components will be built on top of BigQuery. That your standard use case that you would take, right? And but this particular nonprofit I wanted to build a telecalling system based on BigQuery data, right? A little bit background about the nonprofit: it's Avanti Fellows, and they are with the vision of making education accessible and making every low income student attend IITs and NITs. So that's their vision. And for them, right, it's important that the counselors are always in touch with students, and they wanted to build a system where they can call students and check how are their JE prep going, how is their academics going, so that they can guide accordingly, right? And they had a native Android app where the students used to take assessments, and that was stored in BigQuery, right? And they wanted to, implement a rule engine wherein, based on certain logics, data used to be fetched from BigQuery, and then there is a prioritization algorithm which will run and which will automatically tell which students to call, and assign it to telecallers, right? And on the outset, right, it was a very complicated use case. We had not implemented anything on integrating with BigQuery. We weren't sure even the sync with BigQuery would work or not, right? Because Zoho Creator as a platform does not have any native integration to connectors or BigQuery connectors or so on. And also this prioritization algorithm, right, was complicated, and initially, right, on the outside, it looks something that way out of our capabilities to deliver, right? But as you said, right, you spend time with an entrepreneur to understand their problem deeper, and it was fairly simpler problem to solve, right? Like a BigQuery had APIs, and we had to use APIs to fetch data, and we developed a querying module for them where they could give a criteria. For example, assessments less than 50% or something, right? So they can store criteria. Similarly, students who are not attending class for 4 days. Similarly, they can configure conditions based on the data model, and the system would take match those queries, would run a query to BigQuery, and the BigQuery would store the data, and then the system will automatically assign it to the telecaller based on certain predefined logic. If it's from Tamil Nadu, this telecaller. If it is Telugu speaking, then this telecaller, and the system would assign that, right? And I think that's one of the very complicated use case, but a brilliant use case again, where today, right, the app is being used by to track the progress of more than 20,000 students. So telecallers have been using it, and I think that's one story which came to my mind.
Awesome. That's really insightful and an interesting use case. Even when you're trying to explain, even I was trying to figure out, okay, how are you connecting the dots now? But then, yeah, you connected well. Actually, to spill a bit of secret to our viewers, recently you have been awarded with Chevening Award. Many people wouldn't be aware about what that is. Can you shed some light, and how do you think you being a social entrepreneur is facilitating that award, like valuing, like adding a value to that award, as well as your journey, and also in contrast with Zoho Creator, how are you taking these three angles together?
So Syed, thank you so much for spilling the beans, right? So yeah, so I'll tell you how I see this, right? And I think, and every entrepreneur, right, has stages where they undergo certain evolution. The way I really see this recognition is way EdZola is also evolving into a from a local company which is creating grassroots change using social impact to a more global tech for impact company. And I think that is what this award means to me. um, and to share a little bit about the award and what this means to us, right? So, Chevening is a award run by, funded by the Department of FCDO by the UK government, and they fund for a 1 year of program in the UK, right? And I'll be pursuing a 1 year program in London at the prestigious London School of Economics, right? And a little bit of why, right? Why this and why does it matter? And if you see in India, right, we've worked in different of social causes, be it education, be it livelihoods, be it poverty alleviation, and be it sustainability, or be it social protection, so on and so forth. And if you see in most of these cases, right, we've worked with causes where whatever is the pain points of the non-profits, right? But if you ask me today, is EdZola directly contributing to any social impact? No, it is mostly indirect with the reach of the non-profit that we are doing. But my pursuit has always been, how do you leverage technology to actually create grassroots change, and to really get to the causes of these issues and understand social problems in more detail, and can we build technology solutions at a root cause level, right? Not only that addresses symptoms, but also addressing root causes. So that's when Chevening happened, and Chevening is providing that opportunity of connecting and learning from global change makers, and to really understand these issues in detail, and thereby contributing to a more broader ecosystem. Right? And to answer your question on how Zoho Creator or this partnership will help, right? And I think we are just getting started. I think, to put it in a better way, I think our journey has, even though it's been 4 years, or I think we are just getting started, where we are beginning to see success stories of different nonprofits leveraging technology and creating impact. And this is not just a movement of locally, right? Not just in India, but we want to make this a global movement where nonprofits across the globe can actually leverage technology to create a global impact, right? And that's our vision. And to facilitate that, right, Chevening is providing that platform where we can interact with different representatives from different countries. And what I'm actually very optimistic is to see how other countries and other nonprofits across different countries can actually leverage Creator and platforms like other platforms by Zoho to actually create more robust impact. Because I think the impact and the exposure of such tools, right, is I would say very less in developing countries, especially, right. and this would give us that opportunity to work with brilliant organizations across the globe to create just greater social impact. And I think that's the vision, and that's what this means to all of us.
Perfect. Well put, Akshay. Thank you so much for that. One other factor is actually when it comes to non-profit or when it comes to any organization out there, right? Whenever they want to leverage any technology, people think it is quite on the expensive side. It will cost them a lot. They have to put in some investment in regards to implementing a solution, streamlining the process inside an organization. How is Zoho Creator fitting that angle for the non-profits? Do you think non-profits are really thinking about investing, or like, what's your perspective on that and your take?
I'll actually answer that in two parts, right? One is the cost angle, and another is the sustainability angle of it, right? The reason why we prefer Zoho Creator for nonprofits is of course, the affordability factor, right? And compared to any full stack solution or compared to any other competitor in the market, right? Zoho Creator is a self-managed platform with has less overheads and thereby making it very affordable for nonprofits, right? And that is something that I already addressed in the first question itself, right? But the fact that makes it more interesting, right, is the sustainability angle, right? So what we've seen with nonprofits that we've worked for 3 or 4 years, right, they've started actually falling in love with the platform. They start using the platform, right? So whatever backend operation that we used to help them with is now be it adding a form or being adding a field in the report or creating small charts, right? Now nonprofits are having interest in actually developing these applications, and we take the step ahead and provide training, and thereby they are actually able to maintain the solution that we are building, thereby making the solution more sustainable, right? Because see, at the end of the day, nonprofits are always crunch for resources. They don't have money, they don't have time, etc. And a platform like Zoho Creator, it actually makes their life really easy, because they are spending time to actually create solutions at a much lesser time at a lesser cost, and also which is a reliable and a high quality platform that way, right? The uptime is really good, there is almost zero margin of error, etc. So I think that's how I think nonprofits leverage Zoho Creator to actually see value. Perfect. I hope that answers your question. Yeah, like it was a well put answer. Thank you so much, Akshay. Actually, one other part is whenever we express Creator as a platform which helps anyone build powerful applications. When we say application, they usually assume it as apps. That's a short word, right? And people usually, when they say apps, they imagine WhatsApp or like some general app which we use on a mobile. How do you make, how do you put out to them telling that some things like that can't be built on, or can it be built on Zoho Creator from your perspective? As you worked on Zoho Creator, do you think it can be built on Zoho Creator, like platforms like that, or do you think that, how do you put it to them saying that, oh, these kind of things, it's not for that, it's something about that, like something for the process oriented? How do you like explain and make them understand that part? Really great question, Sayed. I think we've received a request where can we build a game application in Creator, or like these fancy multimedia applications. And unfortunately, right, Creator is not the right platform for it, right? But I think the way we really position Creator is having strong and robust data systems, right? I think anything to do with data, right? Data collection, data augmenting, data manipulation, data analysis, reporting, visualization, workflow automation, right? All these things, right? Creator is a really powerful platform for anything to do with data, right? And I think you would also agree that Creator is a very I don't think there's any other platform right now which is as powerful as Creator to build data applications, where you can create your own data collection forms, you can write workflows to manipulate the data, or build have logics in place, and you can configure your own set of reports and dashboards. Thereby, that end-to-end cycle of data, right, is evidently available in one platform. And I think for nonprofits also who actually have a lot of data load, right? Because for nonprofits to scale, right, therefore them to go from one place to another place, they need strong data systems in place to collect data, manage their teams, right? Imagine a nonprofit, working in 10 different states with 50 different districts. They need strong data systems in place, and Creator is the platform that they would actually use to manage their end-to-end data. And it also builds trust, transparency, and also accountability in stakeholders. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much for that answer, Akshay.
Akshay, keeping creator a bit aside, you have been a social entrepreneur for so many years. Like you've been contributing to different projects. You've been a teacher, professor once for Teach for India. Then you've been associated with UNIS and Youth. Probably can dive into that as well. And then you've been like a part of too many social causes, right? Uh, what kept you going so far? Because usually, if an individual passes out of college, they usually think of getting into a company like Zoho or like settling somewhere and probably getting a good pay job and settling there, right? But what was that one aspect which kept you going towards this cause? Like you took this route over here. Can you shed some light on that?
Yeah, thank you, Sayed. And I think I've always been a person who, I never connect back, looking forward, right? It's always you connect the dots looking backward. So I just did things which pursued or gave me my energy or that, kick, right? And even in this, right, I'll shed a little bit of light on, what kept me going, right? And that was your question. And to start off, right, from software engineering, I told you when I was a software engineer at Zoho, I was mentoring five girls, right? And as part of a non-profit. And one of those girls, right, her name was Gomati, and she was studying in a government college, pursuing her medical. So she was a student in Teni Medical College. And, as part of mentoring, we do regular check ins with her and make sure that, they have a good college life. And if they have doubts, we clarify. And if they need any kind of support, we provide, and so on and so forth. Right? In one of those conversations, very casually, right, Gomati tells me, like, அண்ணா என் கூட படிச்சவங்களே நான் ஒருத்த மட்டும்தான் காலேஜ் போயிருக்கேன் நான் ஒருத்தி மட்டும் தான் காலேஜ் போயிருக்கேன் and translation is she was the only one from her class to only girl child from her class to go to college, right? And that was very surprising for me, right? And for someone who grew up in an environment where everyone went to college, that was surprising. So I started asking more questions to her, right? So I asked her, tell me what happened. Yeah, matanga college pola. Why did the others go to college? And she started telling me, right? And the dropouts happen in a series of different stages, right? First is, after 8th standard, when the RT laws are no longer applicable, the schools can detain students who are not yet in the level of 9th standard, right? So few students dropped out after 8th standard, right? And then few students dropped out after 10th standard, where there was no nearby government higher secondary school in their village that can offer free education, right? So they had to travel 20 to 30 kilometers, which made it a bigger distance. And Gomati was able to study because a nearby private school decided to give her 100% scholarship because she topped the school in the government school setup, right? So since she was a topper, the government school, the private school gave her a scholarship, and she was able to continue, right? Whereas many of her friends had to drop out because of the distance. And after 12th, right? Again, many dropped out, different reasons. Girls were forced into child marriage, or or பொண்ணை படிக்க வச்சா கல்யாணத்துக்கு மாப்பிள்ளை கிடைக்காது, reasons like that, right? The girls wouldn't find potential bridegrooms, or the guys had to support the family, and so on and so forth, and education dropped out, right? And I was actually very worried seeing this statistics, right? And I went and looked up, right? And that's when I was very surprised to see, out of 100 students entering your mainstream education, only 27 actually go to college, right? And it was very surprised, and that's when that was one of the reasons why I applied for Teach for India fellowship, which gives you this opportunity to teach 2 years in a government school, right? And so that was my reason to shift from a tech sector to a social sector, right? But even in social sector, right, I'll tell you one incident which happened. I went to 3 months into the government school, and I wanted to like give exposure to students, whichever I had the opportunity to receive. So as a student, I used to participate in a lot of quiz competitions. So I took the students to a IT quiz competition. It's a tech quiz competition, which I had the privilege of participating when I was a student, right? So I took six students from my class, and it was from Puliyanthoppan, North Chennai to Music Academy. And we went inside, right? And you will be surprised, right? Even for those kids to enter Music Academy, the watchman would say, "Hey, government school students are not allowed inside this building," right? So I had to show him that we've actually registered for this quiz. I had all the papers, and then he let us in, right? And after the quiz, right, I asked the students, "So how was your experience in participating in the quiz?" Right? And the response was, "Sir, this is the first time we are sitting inside a AC room."
Oh my God.
இதான் சார் வாழ்க்கையிலே ஃபர்ஸ்ட் நாங்க ஏசி ரூம்குள்ள உட்காடுறோம், நாங்க இங்கெல்லாம் வந்ததே இல்லை, ரைட்? அண்ட் இன் த சேம் குவிஸ் காம்படிஷன், ரைட், there was another kid almost of their same age, right, studying in a private school, using Android smartphones, tweeting about the quiz and winning prizes, right? And my whole question was, just because a student is studying in a government school, does that mean they do not deserve any quality education, right? And I took it as a personal motto to actually leverage technology within my classroom, right? So I went back and I wanted to make sure these students who are in a government school in Pulyanto deserve quality education. So, and Zoho was very supportive there, right? So Zoho helped me set up a technology classroom within a government school. We set up a 20 laptops in the classroom. Students were, getting taught in digital literacy. They were making presentation. They were learning math using games. They were reading and speaking English using voice assisted applications. We leverage AI, etc. Right? So much to, just in leveraging technology in education. And what I saw as outcomes, right, was really surprising because, normally students progress one grade level, like grade 6 to grade 7. There is a certain mastery which is involved. But to my surprise, right, because we leverage technology, students were growing 2 grade levels in 6 months, right? They were growing at 2x the speed and their skills were rapidly improving because suddenly there was this curiosity factor and they were spending more time in actually their learning, right? They used to stay back after class, they used to spend time in learning, etc. And that's when I realized, technology used for the right purposes, right, can actually create a greater social impact, right? And if you see, I always loved software engineering. Even when I was at Zoho, right, I used to love my job. And technology is something which is a passion for me. And I always wanted to see how technology can actually play a role in creating greater social impact. And that was the time, it was 2020, and the world was battling a pandemic, right? And if there was one thing which was a need of the hour at that point, it was a need for technology to be more accessible at that point. And nonprofits who were working in fields, right, needed the technology, right? And this is a story that I've actually, not shared a lot in public forums, but there was a short stint that I used to work in an edtech company, right? And I was, and it's a for-profit company, right? Immediately after fellowship, I was doing a consulting gig with them, and I was building their AI curriculum. So my day job was to actually teach and build AI curriculum for grade 6-year-olds. And these are students from private schools, elite schools in India. And I was building that AI curriculum. And there was one specific instance, right? I was observing a class that was happening in our platform. And one of the students, I thought, her name was Srimati, she calls me and she's like, சார் இந்த வாரம் எங்க வீட்டுக்கு வந்து ரேஷன் சப்ளைஸ்க்கு எங்க பேர் ஆட் பண்ணிக்கிறீங்களா, வீட்டில் அரிசி தீர்ந்து போச்சு. விச் பேசிக்லி மீன்ஸ் like we are running short of supplies because of COVID in our home. Can you add our name to the list, right? And at the same time, I see the kid who is same age, right, who's in the screen, and the kid had a MacBook Pro, was complaining to our trainer that JavaScript is very easy, give me difficult problems, right? And that inequity, right, kind of hit me at the same time, right? And I knew that I may live 40, 60 years more, right? But I don't think I'll ever be happy in making money or building a great career when I know that someone like Srimati needs my time and my impact is far greater there, right? And that's when I quit the job and wanted to see how we can leverage technology to actually create social impact. So I think it is reasons like this, right, which keeps me going as well.
Awesome. That's a really well thought put in, Akshay. Thank you so much for sharing the story. It's really inspiring of how you started early as a employee and then you've grown as a social entrepreneur out there in the technology forum, and you're representing your company as well as how you're using technologies like Zoho Creator very well. You mentioned about Zoho in bit, that how Zoho helped you in shaping like a couple of your projects. One thing you still you still remember about Zoho, like a thing which a memory that stuck in your head that you'll never forget about Zoho.
There are so many good memories, right, which are out there. Like back in the days, right, I think when I was a software engineer, I walked in these bucket building and the roads to bucket building as a newbie, as knowing nothing, right? And I would say this was my first professional workspace, right, to be working as a software engineer. And one of the things that I really loved is the freedom to experiment and freedom to fail, right? And I'll give you an example of that. So I was a newbie software engineer and I pushed some bug to the main code base on one day when I was an intern. This was, barely a week or two into the job, and I pushed something and I did not test it properly, and because of that, right, the entire software build failed. So then every day a software build is created, which the team uses to work on their features and requests, right? And that day the build was not created because of the bug that I had put, right? And as a very newbie software engineer, I was fretting. I was, like, oh man, I'm going to lose my job. I made a mistake. People are going to chase me, etc. Right? And I walk in very nervously and thinking, because I saw the emails that build not generated. Everyone was asking, etc. I go and like, my mentor has already figured out by then, right? So I go to him and tell this happened, and he's like, so what? தப்பு பண்ணாம பண்ணலன்னு எப்படி கத்துப்ப, right? Mistakes are a part of life. If you don't commit mistakes, how will you learn from it, right? So, and that was very surprising for me, right? And I think that was the first time I realized that mistakes or failures are actually a part of our learning journey, right? And I think that is one distinct memory. And today, a part of our culture is also to figure out, even if we do mistakes or failures, right? We learn from it, right? And I think that was one core thing that stuck with me, right? As a cultural thing, right? Is being open to trying out and failing and then learning from it. I think that is one thing which is there. And the next thing is, I think, the support, right? And I think I owe a lot of gratitude to Zoho actually. And one specific moment which I think I should say here is, the moment I left Zoho and I said, I wanted to pursue something called as a fellowship where I want to work in a government school. The folks at Zoho told me, my team, entire team, right, is like, Akshay, you're going to do something good, which none of us had the privilege or the luxury to do it. We all had commitments, and we couldn't do what you're doing. And we really like what you're trying. You want to do something good, and you're wanting to create a social outcome, right? And always remember that if things go back, things go bad, things fall apart, you have this place in Zoho always, right? You can always come back. This job is there, so don't worry about it. Go out, explore, and see if you're liking it, right? And I think that gave the, as a 20, I think I was 21, 22-year old then. As a 21, 22-year old then, right? It gave us so much confidence to try and do different things, because Zoho is like a family which will always catch you when you fail. So I think that is something which I always had, and I think Zoho kept on giving me that comfort cushion at different stages, right? As a employer, employee, as a partner, as a as a beneficiary of our school, etc. And I think Zoho was always there.
Perfect. I think that defines your love for. So I think I still remember my personal thing where when I was in my previous company, I had to inform my manager before leaving. So I have to like tell him like, hey, I'm done with the work. I'm just leaving. But here, when I joined here for the first time, I expressed like when I was leaving for the first day, I was just going to tell my manager like, hey, I'm leaving for the. He was like, why are you informing me? If you're done with it, you can leave anytime. You can walk in anytime. You can leave in anything. I think that's what defines. So like in the earlier podcast also when Haider mentioned about how would he define Zoho? He said like trust, freedom, and long term. These are the three words he would use to define Zoho. I think that's aligning very well with everyone's thought over here. Thank you so much for sharing those stories with us, Akshay. Actually, to end this beautiful podcast, I mean, we have spoken about how.
Are we already at the end?
Yeah. So we have spoken about beautiful conversations like how Creator is impacting nonprofits and how it is adding value over there, not just for their management but also in their own lives, how it is simplifying it. Like Kya Jadoo Kar Diya Tune was one of those moments, and then we spoke about your journey and what has kept you going so far. In our society today, we believe we want to change many things, right? But change starts from us, like within us. Like we want, if you believe you have to change something, we usually take it believe like why aren't people doing this? Why aren't people reacting that way? Like how you expected to? How would you put that thought? Like if the change begins, it should begin within you. How would you put in that thought, like for yourself?
And great question, Sayed. And if I have to answer, right, I think the only easy way to answer is, by becoming a part of the solution rather than being part of the problem, right? And I think that is one of the things that I would like to say, because I was always this person who complained about the education system forever, right? I was like, yeah, this is not good, that is not good, etc. Right? And the moment that I decided to stop being part of the problem and being a part of the solution, it made all the difference, right? And once you're part of the solution, right, you eventually, like find ways to contribute, find ways to fix it, and and I think that's my message for all of them as well, right? And I think whatever little that you can do, right, I think it doesn't matter, right? But please do, right? It could be even just around your community, going and talking to a few students who need education support, right? Or it could be just helping someone fill a government scheme portal, right, who doesn't have digital literacy, anything, right? Or being a scribe and writing exam for someone who cannot see, right? And these are little ways but can go a long way in changing, right? Because I strongly believe that I was earlier when we were speaking, right, if you're earning more than 10,000 a month in this country, you're already ahead of 99% of them, right? And 99% of our country earns less than 10,000 a month, right? And for that, right, how do you actually go out and figure out how do we collectively move forward, right? And I think as a society, it's very important that each one should bring at least 10 people with them, and not try to compete with others. And it's not a race, right? I think most of the time, right, this corporate, there is a lingo called rat race, right? And I hate that word, right? And I don't think even in Zoho we call that as a race. And long term is something that you said, right? So my perspective is also that how do we as a community, or as a community, move forward and bring everyone together? And I think that's something I want to say. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much, Akshay, for sharing those thoughts. Akshay, to end this podcast, you are an entrepreneur. There are many people who want to start their entrepreneur journey out there. So, to the people who want to start, what would one piece of advice you would like to give it to them? I never thought I'll become an entrepreneur, right? I wouldn't say I never wanted to be an entrepreneur, because I've been reading a lot of entrepreneurship books right from a very young age, right? So I always know that, I wanted to be an entrepreneur. But when this happened, right, I actually did not realize that I actually became one, because I was more in the pursuit of, hey, there is a problem and I need to solve it, right? And it is a more drive to solve a problem, which eventually made me an entrepreneur to set up an organization, because I started as a solo founder, which meant like I found a problem and then eventually it became a organization of its own. And my advice is, right, is more than just becoming an entrepreneur, right? Find a problem that you love solving, right? And think of all the benefits it can give to all your users. And I think as an entrepreneur, right, I think there are some qualities that I think is very essential, right? So one is just starting. Most people think they want to start or want to start, but only 1% of them actually do, right? So I think if you want to be part of that 1% who actually start up, just start, right? It can be a pet project, it could be a part-time gig, it could be anything, but just start. So that's one. Even you could fail in your first. Yeah, 100% failures are a part of it. Right? Second thing, right, is don't be obsessed with your idea. And I think there is a certain, even though I'm so passionate about social impact, there is a certain distance you need to keep to know if your idea is failing, right? Because not all ideas succeed, and it's you should be open to fine tune your problem statement accordingly to create a greater impact. And don't you shouldn't be obsessed with your idea that you started with, right? So that's one, being adaptable, right? Third thing, right, is very important. I tell young entrepreneurs these days, right, is there are very few entrepreneurs actually cross the 5 year mark, right? Less than 10% or 5% of startup with start actually cross the 5 year mark, right? And as an entrepreneur, right, the biggest threat and the biggest opportunity is finding oxygen to move, right? And I think not giving up, and just that perseverance, right, is something that's really hard. So I think whatever it takes for survival, right? Any entrepreneur today who's starting up should think of survival on how they are going to survive, right? This could include finance management, or this could include working on your well-being, mental well-being, especially, right? Building a community of support, etc. Because it's a grueling journey, right? And for you to survive, you need to build that ecosystem around you that will give you that runway to be able to continue your journey for one more day. And I think that is very important for any entrepreneur today, to just survive one more day. What will it take? What will it take for you to survive one more year? What will it take for you to survive 10 years? And what will it take to survive a decade and build a legacy? And I think that survival mindset is something which is very important. Perfectly, like, well put answer, which
think I'm taking definitely too many learnings out of this podcast, and I hope our viewers too. So thank you once again, Akshay. Thank you so much for such an inspiring story you have, and all the very best for your journey forward. We wish you the best of luck, and hopefully we look forward to collaborate with you for more such beautiful conversations here. Thank you so much, Akshay.
Thank you, Sayed. I had a lovely time, and thanks to the entire Zoho Creator team as well for inviting me.
Perfect. Thank you, Akshay.
Thank you.